dear.
Oh my goodness!
I only miss I can't be there and give you a hug.
I know. I wish I could give you a hug too. And I was looking at this picture of us from Boys on the Side and just thinking, does it feel like it was yesterday? Does it feel like a long time ago? What is time and space?
Yeah.
But it was just nice to look at it.
Does it feel like yesterday or does it feel like 60 years ago? I mean, but now I'm looking at that. I remember where we were, Tucson, Arizona. Leave the set. I remember I was driving a little blue truck. We drive back to Tucson from the set. I remember you telling me how much you loved avocados back then.
I would like to be buried under an avocado tree. I would.
Yes.
And you were like playing the bongos. I remember that was happening a lot when you were off work.
Yes, I've been played bongos long before I got arrested for playing bongos.
I just was like, someone who plays the bongos, that's just, so unique. And I love the poetry of the way you speak and think. And I've been having the most incredible time reading your book.
Thank you. I was hoping you would like it.
Well, I love that in the opening you say this is an approach book.
Mm-hmm.
I really fell in love with that. You talk about this is not an advice book. You are not preaching, although you do love preachers. And it also says this is a playbook based on adventures from my life. And it is such an amazing way to get insight into your life's journeys, but it's just so full of takeaways.
You know, I call it an approach book, as you said, and not an advice book, because nobody likes to be told what to do. And I know especially I don't. But I did have a great time sharing some stories of my own life, approaches to life that I've taken that have given me satisfaction, approaches I've taken that I failed at, and luckily kept sort of notes and journals over 36 years of successes and failures, cools and shamefuls along the way. And it was fun to put them down on the page and share them. And you know, I'm hearing from different people how it's translating to them individually, and how they're getting a laugh out of it or getting some wisdom out of it. And that makes my heart swell.
There is something I also circled, and it's the story of when you were starting out, you thought, should I try method acting? Should I study? You were studying. You thought maybe you were getting too intense about it. Were you losing a sense of that improv and freedom and like swagger? And so you just went onto a set and didn't know anything because you thought it would like work in your favor to be kind of easygoing and groovy. Turns out you had a 4-page monologue in Spanish, and you said, this is so important. We have to prepare to have freedom. Mm. You have to do the work in order to do the job. I just think that is such important. That is an important life lesson and has incredible advice.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way from that story. And if you want a good laugh, check that one out, because boy, was I embarrassed. I didn't look at the script. I didn't look at the scene. I didn't look at anything. I just said, I'll go there and I'll just do what my man would do, you know? Well, when it was a 4-page monologue. And then I get in my head that I think, well, I took a semester of Spanish in the 11th grade. If I just take 12 minutes off, maybe I can go memorize 4 pages of Spanish, negatory. I've never been able to watch that scene. I don't know what I ended up doing, but I know I didn't do a 4-page monologue in Spanish like I was supposed to.
That is my worst nightmare. I do have nightmares and like terror dreams that I show up to work empty-handed, and because everyone's waiting around on you just staring, and it's not an option. And so I just reading that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like reading about my own subconscious nightmares.
Yes, I've woken up in the middle of the night with cold sweats with that fear before myself.
Had you always wanted to write a book? Was it a bucket list thing, something you thought of when you were younger, like brass ring, Frodo later on? Or was it after the life was consumed, you thought, now I have something to write about?
I think it came later. I mean, look, for the last 15 years, I've been looking over at this treasure chest full of journals that I've been keeping and writing for the last 36 years. And so that treasure chest has gotten full. I take it with me wherever I go. And for the last 15 years, I've looked at that treasure chest daily and said, you need to go away and see what's in there. And then a couple years ago, I got the courage to say, you know what, I've got some time off. I'm going to go away on my own, solitary confinement, and see what I got. With a kick in the backside from my wife, Camilla, telling me, do not come back home until you do have something. So I loaded up with my favorite liquor, a bunch of steaks, a bunch of water, headed out, and didn't come back until I had some.
I love that story so very much, and I'm so glad that you did do that. May I ask, do you have any suggestions on why journaling is important?
Yeah, I started off keeping a journal when I was 14. I think like most young, probably more young women, but also some young men do it at that age. I was writing down, I was confused. Who the hell am I? Why did Gretchen Donnelly break up with me? Why do I have pimples on my face? Blah, blah, blah. I was asking those awkward questions. And then I later on continued to write when things were going well, when I felt like I had found my frequency, when I was in the flow of life, when I was succeeding, when my relationships were healthy. With the hunch, which turned out to be true, that, I'll get in a rut again. I'll get off frequency, but now I have something I can look back at and go, well, what were you doing when you were in the flow, McConaughey? And plus, what journaling does for me is, I've said this in the beginning of the book, I don't write things down so I can remember. I write them down so I can forget them. When you get a good idea or something crosses you, don't forget that thing. Don't forget that thing. Well, if you go write it down, you can forget it and go, I've got it written down. I can go back and trust that inspiration I had is there. So I don't have to run around while talking to somebody thinking about, I got to make sure to remember that.
I'm really glad I asked because I write things down to forget it in a different way when I was reading the book. And I almost thought it was like to work it out, get past it, and then move on. You're talking about being able to relax because it is so exhausting to try and remember all these things that we want to remember. They're important to us.
Right.
They mean something. Wow. Okay. I'm really glad I got...
you and I are at dinner, and you say something that inspires me. I'll pick up the phone, and I'll rewrite it down, and I'll have to say, hey, I'm not writing someone that's not here. I'm actually writing something down that you just said that I want to deconstruct or bring up to you later. If I don't write that down, then the rest of our conversation, 10% of my mind's going, don't forget that thing, don't forget that thing. So I'm not present with you.
Yeah.
Right? So I love to write it down. And before phones, I would write it down on my arm and take a picture, take a picture of the Sharpie thing I wrote on a beer coaster, a napkin, what have you.